peace and blessing, love and light. And welcome to the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. Join us as we navigate in new spaces using our mental, physical, and spiritual toolboxes to create our peaceful existence. Sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired to transition and be transformed. I am your host, Kim Martin-Raymond. Let's dive into the How Now. And blessings, love, and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin-Raymond, and I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefinding You, LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to the show. If you are new to the How Now podcast, welcome to season 6 of the How Now podcast. This is season 6 of our show, and so please make sure that you go to my brand new website, kimmartinraymond.com, to find out all things products and services and all things How Now. Okay, be sure to go and do that, or check out my YouTube channel at How Now Podcast 2391 and catch up on some of the shows that you missed. Check out some of my playlists like Tuesday and Spirit Body Transformation, where I talk about all things Kim Martin-Raymond, all things How Now, all things products and services that I provide through my Spirit Body Transformation as well. So again, go to kimmartinraymond.com to find out all things going on in my now. Okay, now before we get started, for those of you again who are new to the show, last year we did a 365-day challenge where I challenged my listeners to create healthy habits, mind, body, and spirit, that we can put in our mental, spiritual, and physical toolboxes so that we can be better versions of ourselves. And this year is all about execution. How are we taking those things that we learn? How are we taking those healthy habits and keeping them going in our daily lives, that we're creating better versions of ourselves? So that has been the focus of this year of execution. I also have 4 segments that I have started this year, and I have co-hosts who are joining me for that. And one of them is Living Your Purpose with Jason Gerardo. And he's talking about something called the bridge technique, where we're tearing down those walls and creating bridges so that we can figure out what our purpose is in this life, and talking about ways in which we can execute those purposes that we have for ourselves. The second person that I have is Financial Fitness with Leah Garcia. And she is the dynasty builder. And she's talking about ways that we can build legacy and how we can be better stewards of our money. And so that way we can make better decisions for the things that we want in our lives and for the purpose that we have in our life. And then I also have another segment with talking about the 12 spiritual principles. And that is with Dr. Reginald Howard. And he talks about one spiritual principle each month. And he highlights a spiritual luminary who encompasses what that spiritual principle is all about. Okay. And then finally, we have Spirit Body Transformation. And that's where I talk about my physical wellness journey and talking about nutrition and mind shifts and all things created to referring to our spirit body transformation. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And so be sure again that you tune in to the previous episodes of the How Now podcast, that you can be informed about those things that are going on, because it's all about informing people so that way they can make the transitions that they need to make and be transformed. Okay, so let's get into tonight's episode, where I'm going to be talking about the mental weight after physical loss. Okay, saying it again, the mental weight after physical loss. And there are going to be 4 things that I want to talk about. I'm going to be talking about the phantom body. I'm going to be talking about hidden grief. I'm going to be talking about the shifts in relationships. And then finally going to be talking about the pressures of trying to stay small. So we're going to jump right in. Make sure you have your drink ready. Make sure to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Okay. So like I said, first I want to talk about, the phantom body. Okay. In my last segment on Spirit Body Transformation, we were talking about, 5 things that you don't think about as you get into significant weight loss, and we talked about the financial aspect of that. We talked about having to change our clothes. We talked about how our physical appearance changes. And, those are some things that, are things that we don't consider when we first have a significant weight loss. We're just so focused on getting to that milestone that we don't think about some of the things that happen after we've reached it. Okay, so be sure to go back and check out my previous episode where we were talking about those 5 things that you don't think about when you experience significant weight loss or once you reach a significant weight loss milestone. Okay, so my backstory is that I lost 64 pounds roughly 4 years ago. Coming up this September will be 4 years since I started my wellness journey. And like I said, lost 64 pounds and have been able to maintain at least 50 of those 64 pounds. Okay. Because lives and things change. And we're going to get into that as we go along in the show. Okay. But one point that I want to talk about is that phantom body. When you lose a significant amount of weight, then it's really a challenge to be able to see yourself in this new body. Okay, there were many times after I lost weight and went to go look in the mirror that I was shocked. It was like because in your mind's eye you're thinking that you still look a certain way, but then when you look in that mirror you're surprised by, oh, wait a minute, I do look different. And so it's amazing how much, of a mental change it is. So it's not just the physical change that we're going through, it's a change in our mind shift, our mindset. I don't say mindset because I feel like that gives a little bit of a definitive meaning to it. I always say a mind shift because as things are changing and as we're growing and we're learning, sometimes we have to stretch. So I love to say mind shift. So you'll hear me say that more than I'll say mindset. We want to talk about how we have a shift in our mind and in our thinking. Okay. So even though we have those changes, or those significant changes in our body, we have to realize that we're going to have those significant changes in our minds as well. Okay. So with that phantom body, you're still feeling like you're a larger person. And so sometimes you feel like you're having to shrink your body to get into small spaces because that's something that you were used to doing. Okay. That became a reality for me, especially when I traveled. I travel often for work and for pleasure, and getting in an airplane and feeling like I had to shrug my shoulders instead. That way I would fit into the space instead of being able to sit comfortably and realize that no, I fit in this seat. Sucking my stomach in, thinking that I have to suck it in to get that seatbelt on, and realizing that no, I didn't have to do that. So there's this idea of the phantom body where you're feeling like you're not able to fit in spaces and then realizing that you can. Okay. I remember, putting that tray down on the plane, being able to sit my drink on it. I was so used to having to slide back and try to slide that tray down so that way I can, be able to put my drink down or my snacks on the plane. And I sat there for a long time, y'all. Click, 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 putting the tray up and down like, oh my gosh, it actually fits. So it's that whole idea of phantom body, that whole idea of going in the store and going directly to that larger section because that's where your mind is conditioned to go. We become creatures of habit over time. And as we experience certain things, and that was something that I did, I automatically went over there. I found myself sliding and, like I said, feeling that I had to shrink my body because the phantom body was still there, thinking that I was bigger than I was. And so it becomes a challenge for us as we're changing our, having that shift in our mind for how we see ourselves. Okay? Because we're going to see ourselves in our mind's eye, and then what we see in our mind's eye, we expect to be reflective of what we see in the mirror. And as you're going through a significant transformation in your body, when you're looking in that mirror, even now, 4 years later, almost 5 years later, I'm looking in the mirror and still every now and then I'm shocked by what I see because old habits die hard. old mind shifts die hard. There are things that we're thinking and ways that we envision ourselves. And then when those things change significantly, and if they change in a relatively short amount of time, it's hard for our minds to catch up with what we're seeing. And so it's important to stop and say, I have to really start, you know, taking a better look at myself. I had to really go and get a full length mirror and say, okay, start looking at your body, start looking at the changes. I started doing that during my journey because I wanted to see how my body was changing and shifting along the way. But when you get there and you're no longer seeing that larger version of yourself, it becomes a an exercise in patience, an exercise in grace, and being able to say, okay, I have to get used to this new body that I'm seeing. In my last episode, I talked about how your facial features change and you have to get used to that. Okay, because our body, our skin, our tone, those things change as our bodies change. As we get older, we see more wrinkles and we see those little claw feet at our eyes. Those are the things that we begin to see. And so, you know, we have to allow our mind to catch up with what we physically see, but we have to also make sure that we're putting ourselves in front of those mirrors so that way we can begin to make that connection more often. So, okay, take time to look in that mirror, take time to take pictures of yourself so that way you can begin to become familiar with the person that you are now, not the person who you were, because your mind will remember that. I was large for years and years and years. So that's going to take years and years of time to change and to shift what it is that I'm seeing now, you know? And as we continue to go through the process, we're going to begin to again to give ourselves grace so that way we are saying now I'm beginning to become familiar with this new person that I'm seeing, with this new body that I'm in, and learning that I can now sit comfortably. And all of these things are a process. Now, when I sit down, I don't have to feel like I have to shrug my shoulders to slide in anywhere. I begin to walk with confidence because now I am embracing the person that I am. Okay. So that's something that I wanted to talk about, that whole phantom body and that whole idea of remembering to allow our mind to catch up with what it is that we see. Because our mind's eye is a powerful, powerful force. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is hidden grief. Now, people say grief. What are you grieving? Did somebody pass away? No, it's not that kind of grief. You're grieving the old you. Okay. Now, this was something that was really, I mean, it was real in my wellness journey because uh, when I lost the 64 pounds, I had a lot of excess skin. So a I had to go through a folliculectomy and an abdominoplasty. So that means that they had to take excess skin. They had to go down my stomach vertically and then, with an abdominoplasty because my abdomen muscles had extended. So they had to move those back and remove that excess skin. Then I also had to have a folliculectomy and that went horizontal. And they were taking out that little apron of excess fat that I had that hung from my stomach. You could actually hear it. Okay, when I walked or if I did jumping jacks, so I was, using a jump rope or anything like that, you could hear it flapping. That's how loose the skin was after I had lost my weight, and so I had to have that removed. I had to have 11 and a half pounds of skin removed total from my body. Okay. Then on top of that, I had to have a breast reduction. The breast reduction was I went from an I cup to no, from an H cup to a double D. Okay. And so when you're talking about, first of all, phantom body, I went from having all this excess skin to now being in that smaller frame. Okay. But then I also to, uh, you know, had to become familiar with this new person that I was seeing in the mirror. And I had gotten so used to the person that I was that I had that period of grief, that period of loss. Okay. You're losing a significant amount of skin on your body. Okay. Let's start with my breast reduction. When I had that breast reduction, they took 3.5 pounds of excess skin off of my breast. So for a person who was used to having to move her breast to tie her shoe or move my breast or to feel my breast shifting from one side to the next when I laid down, now all of a sudden I didn't have that feeling. So it felt as though, honestly, it felt as though I lost a small child. Okay. My sister was an I cup. She's down to a double D. She had to have a breast reduction after having an injury to her rotator cuff. Okay, what happened? They took 6 pounds of excess skin off of her breast. There are children that are born that are 6 pounds. So there is a loss that you're feeling because you're so used to having this be a part of you. And now there's a part of you that has been extracted, that has been taken away. Yes, with weight loss, it's coming down, but when there's actually skin removal, there is a period of loss that you're feeling because this was a part of you. Even though it was a part that was no longer serving you, it was a part of you. So it feels odd initially. Okay. I remember the night before my surgery, I had a period of grief for the person that I was. Because, you know, in this day and time, we've been taught body positivity. As a full figure woman, I had been big so long that I embraced the big person that I was. I embraced who I was as a full figured woman. I liked my clothes. I liked my style. I liked my rosy face. I found glasses and jewelry and a hairstyle that complemented the full figured person that I was. And so, for a fleeting moment, the night before my surgery, I grieved the old me. I grieved the person that I was because I had come to love her. It took me so long to finally get to that space of accepting who I was. And now here it was, I've lost that person who I've finally come to be in a positive relationship with. So that's a part of the mental weight that you go through as you're experiencing weight loss because now you're thinking that you know I can't I'm no longer going to be this person that I loved. And am I going to be able to be in that same relationship with this new person that I am? Because again, like I said, your facial features change. My facial features changed. Portions of my body changed. And I had to get used to that. You immediately want to run back to what's comfortable, to what you know, even though it may not have served me at the time. I was comfortable there. And now this person that I am now I had to figure out, okay, well, how do I dress this new person? How do I embrace this new body? How do I embrace this new face? And people who know me have heard me say this before. If it was not for the fact that I look exactly like my dad with hair, I would not have recognized myself. I had a whole lot of changes that took place. I had issues, I had not issues, I had lost the weight. I had done the surgery to remove the excess skin. Okay. I had issues with my teeth. I had dental issues. And so I had to have teeth removed. I had to have oral surgery and things done to correct my oral health. So all of these changes happening at one time was a huge mental weight for me. So where I extracted physical weight, I gained mental weight because there were so many things that my brain now had to process. What is this new who is this new person and how do I embrace this person and how do I address this person? Because like in my previous show I was talking about your style changes. So I couldn't dress the way that I was dressing because the clothes no longer were fit for that body but not for this new body that I had. So there was just a lot of confusion going on in my mind as to, okay, how am I going to shift from this old person that I had come to love so greatly. I had to release all of those clothes, my fashion, my style. And now I'm having to be this new person who has a new style, you know, but I'm still the same mentally. On the inside, I was still Kim, but on the outside, I looked different. And so now I've got to figure out how to embrace that person and do it without losing myself in the process. So, like I said, it's a huge transformation that you're making. And again, it's not just the physical weight, it's that mental weight that comes with it that we have to now contend with. So even though we're reaching a milestone, we're reaching a marker, there are still things that are going on inside mentally that we have to address. And that's something that can be a challenge. But I clearly remember the night before that surgery going and saying, girl, I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss it because, look, I was sassy at any weight. I was like, oh, look, I'm that girl. And now I'm like, okay, I'm that girl, but now I have to figure out how to style her. Now I have to figure out how to walk in a new level of confidence. Okay? Because I missed that person that I was because I had come to love and know her, but she was not serving me physically. And so now I had to say, okay, I still love her personality. I still love her drive. I still love her sassiness, but now she looks a little different. How am I going to change her style to meet that person that's still within? Because I'm still the me inside. But again, now my brain has to catch up with what I'm seeing on the outside because the inside is still like, okay, yeah, I'm still doing that. I'm still Kim, but I just don't look like her anymore. I look different. And so we have to be able to be in that mind space of changing or shifting our thoughts to how we see ourselves and to begin to show grace and to embrace that new person that we are. Okay, so that's the hidden grief that happens. You don't think that it's going to be there, but you do. You miss who you were. And there are some people who may have had surgeries like gastric bypass where they have to go through an actual psychological because sometimes what they see, you know, they're like, I don't like what I see. I don't like how my face looks now. I look too gaunt in the face, or, my neck looks weird. So what happens is they revert back to eating the way they were because they're like, I want to go back to the way I looked. And for some people, that's a reality. And that's why when you're having surgeries or you're having significant weight loss, they want to make sure that you're having that psychological that goes along with it. You want to have a coach, you want to have a mental health professional who may be able to help you as you're going through that process. Okay, so it's not just your health coach or your primary physician. There are a whole team of people that you need to work with as you're doing any type of dramatic changes, especially physical to your life, because that includes the mental. You get your nutritionist, you may have your trainer, you may have your coach, but you want to have that mental health professional to be there too to help you as you're transitioning mentally, because it's not just a physical loss, it's a mental stress that comes with that weight loss. Okay, so keep that in mind. It is a team of people that you want to work with, not just an individual, not just a nutritionist, not just a wellness coach. You want to have a team of people working to help you as you're making that transition to transform. Okay. Then we want to talk about shifting relationships. As we're talking about relationships, as we're talking about teams, you want to definitely have people who are going to support you through the process. Okay. One thing as I've been going through, my wellness journey, and like I said, it's one that continues. There's no ending for me because it's a lifestyle change that I'm experiencing. And so, you want to make sure that the people that are in your life are going to be there to support you as you're going through this process. I thank God and shouts out to my husband, Gerard, because he has been there with me to support me as I'm going through this process, and my daughter, Christine, my grandbaby, Quinn. My coworkers, shouts out to Monica and Reggie. Those are my ride or dies, those people who I travel with for work. These people were all instrumental in helping me as I was going through my wellness journey. Okay. For Monica and Reggie, those are people who I travel with for work. And so as I was traveling with them, they helped in, aspects of when we went out to eat. You know, I already don't eat pork or beef. That's been for years. That was before I even started my wellness journey. My body just did not digest those things well. And so I used to eat all things. Let me explain something to you guys. Sidebar. I used to eat the entire pig. What I used to fight over chitlins. I know some people are gonna be like, what? Yes, I did. Okay. Pork rinds, all the things. Pork bacon. What I've eaten enough bacon in my lifetime that if I never eat another piece of bacon, I can still taste it in my throat. That's how much pork I ate. That's how much beef I ate. Steak, all kinds of things, pork chops, all the things. Okay. Those were things that were that my body just could no longer process. Okay. So there was already that limitation before I met my husband, before I started traveling with Monica and Reggie. I just did not eat pork or beef. So that was already one of my, I guess, for lack of a better word, restrictions as far as diet. But as I've been going through my wellness journey, I found that I'm more about 90% pescatarian. I eat a lot of salmon. I eat a lot of ahi tuna. I tend to eat more fish. I still eat chicken. I still eat turkey, but like I said, my body cannot eat processed meats and things of that nature. So, there were changes there, but they helped me because when I was traveling and I had to eat out, Monica was a gem because she would say, "Oh, Kim, I found this restaurant, and they serve fish, or they had things." She made sure that there were items on the menu that I could eat. I was already going on the menu set that way I could make smart choices before I got to the restaurant and wasn't tempted by all the magnificent things that they would see. I would go on the website and check out a menu before I would get to my destination, so I wouldn't even have to look at the menu and be tempted by the things that I saw on there. I would just go in and say, okay, I'd like to have the salmon with this side or that side. Please put the sauce on the side. I would be able to do all of those things. And so they just were cognizant of the fact that, you know, they wanted to make sure that there were things on the menu that I could have choices. Yes, we can go and eat at the barbecue place, or yes, yes, we could go and eat at other places, but they always made sure that there were choices that I could have as well, and not, they were like, oh, well, can they have chicken and fish here? And most places do, so they just made sure that there was an option for me if there was some place that I go. And I appreciated the fact that they were willing to work with me. They weren't just saying, oh, well, we're gonna go and eat here, and I don't know if they have anything that you can eat, sucks to be you. So they didn't do that. They were aware of my journey and they partnered with me. And for that, I appreciated them. Okay. The same things at home. My husband still eats pork or beef. So does my daughter. So does my grandbaby. Sometimes she's not a big meat eater, actually. But, you know, they had things in the house that, I did not eat, but my daughter would prepare those things for my husband. Okay. Or they would have those things and they made sure that there was a selection for me. So they were working in conjunction with me. Your relationships are going to change because it's amazing how food can change things, or significant weight loss can change your relationships with other people. Some people will be offended. What do you mean you don't eat this? Oh my gosh, now I have to go out and do something different. No, the one thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're understanding that we're not going to expect the whole world to change because we've changed. But what we're going to do is we're going to make adaptations. But we're also going to be cognizant not to make people feel uncomfortable either. Okay. I think about people who are gluten free, people now who are vegan, all these other things, and we're having to create all of these options to make sure that everyone is their needs are being met. That's important. But we also have to realize that there are going to be some places that we're going to go, and those options may be limited. And in those instances, when we're talking about, not wanting to strain relationships, what we want to do is make sure that we're partnering with each other. Okay, so if I know I'm going someplace and there may be a limited menu, I'm going to ask ahead of time, what are the options? And if the options are few, I'm going to make sure that if it's food wise, that I'm going to eat before I go. So that way I can have an appetizer. Or if they just have a little veggie tray or something like that, I'll have a little bit of something and that's it. But it's not like I'm sitting there starving or I'm sitting there mad because everybody's eating and I can't eat and they didn't think about me. We have to make sure that we're taking responsibility for the choices that we've made as well. Okay, so if that means eating prior to me getting somewhere, I'm going to do that. Or if that means putting a protein bar or putting something that I can mix in water to have a protein shake, something that's going to sustain me. Most of the time, for these small events that we're going to that are only going to last a couple of hours, you are not going to starve. Okay, keep that in mind. It's a wedding or it's a little party. It's just a couple of hours. Eat a little something before you go, have a little protein bar or something in the car, excuse yourself, go in the bathroom, eat that protein bar, come back strong. Okay. The one thing that I want us to remember, especially, because we put so much focus and concentration on on food that we forget that it's about the fun and the fellowship of an event that we're going to more than it is about the food. How many times have you gone to to an event and the food wasn't that great and you were just like, oh my God, the food was so nasty. Oh my God, that's all you're talking about is the food. But what about the event? What about the opportunities that you got to see people who you hadn't seen in a while, or the opportunity that you got to spend time, quality time with a loved one or a friend or a family member? What about that? Sometimes we focus on, our focus gets skewed. We're stuck on the food aspect and we don't focus on the fun and the fellowship. That's something that's important to remember. Okay. And we want to also just make sure that as we're going through our relationships, that we're partnering with the person and we're asking them to partner with us. I'm not going to say that just because I am 90% pescatarian that everyone in my household can only eat fish and nothing else. You know, there has to be some level of compromise that we make when we're talking about strengthening and building our relationships as well. It can't be that everything is just, one sided. Everything is all about me. It's not the world of Kim. I live in a family. There are four of us that live here, and we have to take into consideration each one of those people's needs. Okay. And so for me, there may be some times where they'll have their pork chops or they may have their thing, and I'll have some chicken or fish on the side. It may be a smaller portion. That's fine, but it's that person is partnering with you. As I was going through my wellness journey, I have a grandbaby. She has snacks that she takes, little chips or things that she may take to school for her lunch. Okay. And my daughter has them in places that are down lower. I'm 5'9", so I'm tall. So she puts those things down in lower areas so that way they're not necessarily at I, or at my line of vision. So they're not necessarily in places that I'm going to look. Or if they're little snacky doos or other little things, she'll put them in a cabinet that I don't normally go into so that they still have the opportunity to have the things that they need and that they want, but they're not necessarily at eyesight level for me. So I know that my things are up higher. I know that the things that I'm looking for, so they're not even in the same area where my food items are kept. Okay. So those are just some of the little things that we can do. And that's where we're showing each other a level of respect for each other's needs and the things that are happening in our lives, you know? And then as my nutritionists change and I'm modeling things for them, if they choose to come along, they'll come along. I'm not forcing anyone's hand to do the things that I'm doing. Sometimes you can show them better than you can, than you can tell them. Or I want to make sure they're seeing my journey and seeing the successes that I'm experiencing, and then they may say, hey, I like that aspect. My husband's doing it right now. I've been doing this for 4 years now. My husband is intermittent fasting. My husband is changing his dietary structure. And that's something that's great. That's something that's happening, not because I've forced it on him, but because he's seen the benefits for me. And it has to be a personal decision that we make for ourselves. It's not that we're forcing our belief system or our things on anyone else. I started this wellness journey because I did not feel well. I didn't start this journey because my husband wasn't feeling good, or my daughter wasn't feeling good, or my granddaughter wasn't feeling good, or my friends weren't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good. So I made a decision to start that wellness journey for me because I wanted to feel better. I got sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Okay. And when that other person in your life gets tired of being sick and tired, or they experience some life altering change where they have to, change their wellness, dietary, and nutrition habits, they'll do the same. But we have to extend people grace, allow them to tell us what it is that they need, or allow them to ask questions, and not be condescending or make them feel like they're lesser than we are because we've experienced or we've reached a milestone and they may not be there yet. It took me years to get there, and it may take them years to get there. But we extend grace to people and we try to meet them where they are. Okay, so that's the one thing that we want to do. We want to make sure that we're treating people with respect. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're treating us with respect too, and that they respect the changes that we're making. Because some people, okay, for lack of a better word, are haters. Oh, well, now you're doing this. There were people when I significantly lost weight. Some people were like, oh, I didn't notice you lost any weight. I lost 64 pounds. You're trying to say things because you feel that that's going to trigger me, but it's not. Okay, because through modern technology and the spirit of Google that can recap every aspect of your life and show you pictures of what you look like before. Yeah, it's crazy, but it can. And so what happens is, you have to change in your mind, you know, what other people are seeing you through a certain lens. You're seeing yourself through a certain lens. I can't give you my glasses and my prescription and expect you to see what I see. These glasses and this lens were set specifically for me. They were not set for you. So we're never going to see things through the same lens. You're never going to see things through my eyes because you're not. I'm never going to give you my eyes, and you're never going to have them. Okay. So what happens is we have to be in that space of saying, okay, I see the changes. I'm happy with the changes that I'm making. And if my relationship with this person is going to be strained because they're seeing things through a different lens, and they're not pleased with what they're seeing, then that may not be the person that needs to be in my life. And that's where we start looking at the level of toxicity that people have in our lives. And is this something that's going to benefit me and my relationships? Or is this something that I need to release? And that's what we have to do. We have to be able to look and say, all right, let me figure out, what's going to be best for me. And it's always going to be about having that mutual respect. You have a respect for that person has a level of respect for you and for the things that you are doing. And if you feel that they are not supporting you in that effort, or that they are trying to find ways to thwart your efforts, then that person may not be the person that needs to be a constant in your life. And if is a person that is a significant other, or that is a person that you are married to, and a therapist maybe need to be involved so that you can talk through those things, then that's what we're talking about. It's those relationships involve the teams of people that we have working with us as we're going through that wellness process. So that's going to also, be important. How our relationships may shift and what they're going to look like once we get to that place of losing that significant amount of weight. How has my relationship changed? And in those instances where that person loves you for who you are on the inside, it's not even going to matter. Okay, because that person is your ride or die. They've been there with you, and it doesn't matter whether you big, small, whatever size you are, they are there to support you. But if you're looking to do things to create a healthier lifestyle that's going to extend your life, that person who cares about you wants you to be here just as long as you want to be here. And so they are going to support you in that. So, you're going to have to look at your relationships and make sure that there's no toxicity in it and that there's not anyone that's that's going to try to curtail your efforts to be successful in your wellness journey. They're going to walk with you. They're not going to push you down. They're not going to pull you, but they're going to walk alongside you. So that's something that's important to remember to your relationship. And then finally, the pressures of staying small. Okay, one thing that we have to consider, or one thing that I've considered, even as I've gone through my wellness journey, and I talked about this in my last show as well, do not be a slave to the scale. Okay, because the things that we eat, there are things that are going to cause us to retain water. That water may stay with us for a couple of days. And then as we're continuing to eat, properly and creating those healthy habits that I was talking about, what's going to happen is that water retention will go back down again. So your weight is going to fluctuate. And if you step on that scale every day and the scale, you ate something that may have been carb rich, or you ate something that may have had a higher level of salt in it, and you may have retained some water, you can gain up to 3 pounds. And you're like, oh my God, how did I gain 3 pounds on that? Oh my gosh, I messed up. And then instead of you just going back to your regularly scheduled program because you had something that was, not something that you normally ate, as a meal, you had a special occasion, something happened, you may have had a slice of cake, or you may have gone to a barbecue, and normally you don't eat a lot of bread, but all of a sudden you had a bun or something like that, you're going to retain water. And so if you've done something out of the ordinary and you go back to eating the way you regularly eat, that scale will go back down again over a matter of days. So we don't want to sabotage ourselves by thinking that, oh, I failed. And so since I failed, I'm going to go ahead and eat this bag of Doritos. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to go ahead and have a shake, and I'm going to go ahead and have all these other things. And then the weight stays on because we haven't understood that as we're going through our wellness journey and as we're experiencing with certain foods and how our bodies react to certain things that we eat, it's not until we get to that point of education that we're going to be able to not become a slave to that scale and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh my gosh, I failed. Oh my gosh, the pressure to become skinny. And so then you begin to do things that are going to cause harm instead of hurting you. Oh, well, I'm just going to starve myself. I'm not going to eat. That's not the solution either, because you'll have people who will say, "Oh, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to fast, or I'm not going to eat." And then when they finally finish fasting, then they go and eat everything in sight because now they're starving to death. There's a process and a way in which we're to govern ourselves when we're talking about nutrition, when we're talking about exercise, when we're talking about overall wellness. Those are the things that we have to think about and understand, so that way, if that scale fluctuates a little bit, then we say, okay, what are some things that we need to do? What are some things that we need to change? If we're at a particular weight, and just like I said, I've maintained 50 of the 64 pounds because there's been some fluctuation. In the course of those 4 years, I have reached menopause. So my body's doing all kinds of interesting and fun things now. So now I have to I don't feel like a failure because I've gained some weight back. I've had some hormonal changes and things that are going on. I've had some changes. I have spinal stenosis, so I have issues with my back. So I do seated exercises. So I've had to change the way I do that. I used to walk around the mountain 5 miles. I used to do that 3 times a week. I can't do that anymore, but I've had to make shifts. I've had to make changes. And again, not just physical changes, but mental changes as well. I had to think about what are some other things that I can do. I couldn't have a limited belief system and say, oh, well, now because I can't physically walk around the mountain 5 miles like I used to do, what can I do instead? I can't stand for long periods of time because of my spinal stenosis, but what can I do instead? I can do seated exercises. I can still do strength training. I can still do other things. I can't walk long distances. So what can I do in place of that? I have a scooter. I ride on that scooter because it's all about quality of life for me. What can I do now differently? So again, it's not just the physical weight loss, it's the mental things that come along with it. I've got to change my mindset. Okay. I Things that I was doing that I was successful in when I first had my significant weight loss, there have been some shifts in that. Okay, because the body is a beast. It becomes used to certain things and then they are no longer effective. Just like they tell you to change your exercise routine. If you're doing the exercises, eventually your body gets used to doing exercise that way and using those particular weights. So now I've got to add a little bit of weight onto it. There are some people that will put on a weighted vest so that it tricks the mind into thinking that you're heavier than you are. And so it's going to help you to work harder as you're going through your exercise routine. Okay. You may have to go back and start tracking your food again and saying, okay, what are some things that I may need to tweak that are going to help me to begin to get that scale going in the opposite direction? And then again, it's not always just about the scale. It's about inches. Sometimes you could be a pound hound and lose pounds and pounds. And then sometimes you're an inchworm. You're going to see that, oh, I may not have lost any weight on the scale, but my waist is 2 inches smaller. Okay, because our body, the weight shifts. It comes back differently. There are some people who have lost significant weight and then they've gained weight back and they haven't gained it back in the same way that they lost it. All of a sudden, I got hips where I didn't have hips. So all of a sudden, I've got extra rolls on my back where I never had rolls on my back. All of these things happen. Our body is a beast. And so it's going to make all kinds of changes. And it's going to take time for the mental to catch up with that. Okay, so those are the things that we have to consider as we're going through physical weight loss. Okay, there are going to be changes in how we perceive ourselves. We see ourselves one way in our mind's eye, okay, and we have to be able to have our mind catch up with our body. So we want to take the time to look at ourselves. We want to take time to see how our bodies are changing and transforming. Pull out that camera and begin to take pictures of yourself. Step in front of that mirror naked and look and see how your body is changing and how things go so that you become acclimated with that, so that you become used to this new person that you are. Okay. Make sure again that you are going through the stages of grief. You've taken an opportunity to see, to embrace the person that you were. And now you've made changes for your health, and so make sure that you're having that conversation with yourself and rationalizing, okay, yes, I loved that person that I was, but how am I feeling in this new body and this new person that I am? And embracing that new person, grieving that person and thanking God for all that you experienced as you were, all the experiences that you had as that person, and now you're coming back and you're saying, okay, I'm no longer that person, but I'm this new person, this healthier version of myself, but I'm still me. I can have that healthy grieving period, but I'm not going to stay focused on that because I'm focusing on what I've become and how I'm feeling as a result of that. Okay. Then again, those relationships, really begin to assess your relationships. Are the people around me there? Are they working with me or are they working against me? Are they toxic people that I need to change the status of my relationship with? What do I need to do differently with regards to that relationship? What are some things that I can do as a compromise, especially for those who are living in my household? Okay. Am I making people feel, alienated because I've made a change and they're not ready to make a change? Okay. Sometimes we're always thinking about the attack on us, but sometimes it's us who can be like, oh, well, I'm doing this and I'm helping you. Well, you need to do this and you need to drink more water. And you need to do. All of a sudden, we want to become the expert, but it took us time to get to where we are as well. So there's some consideration that has to be had on both sides of that when we're talking about the relationship. It's not just how somebody is reacting to you, it's how you're reacting to people as a result of your weight loss as well. Are you that person who's feeling like, oh, well, I'm too good to be around these people. I don't need to be around these people. They too big. They're doing this and that. Think about how you're responding to your weight loss as well. Okay. So that relationship works both ways. It takes two. Okay. And then again, the pressures of staying small, making sure that we're not so fearful of gaining the weight back, but that we're looking at adjustments that we need to make as we're seeing those changes. Again, it's there's not a destination for your wellness. You know, it's just how we're going to continue to navigate in that space. Are we going to continue to walk straight ahead, or are there going to be some twists and turns that we're going to have to make adjustments and adaptations to? That's something that's important. We want to make sure that we're not panicking over the fact that we may be gaining some weight. Give yourself a window. When I lost weight, I was like, I wanted to give myself a 10-pound window because I knew that there were going to be fluctuations. And if I stayed within that, that at least gave me some grace to gain or lose a little bit. And then if I wanted to slide that scale down, or I want to lose 10 more pounds and then create another 10-pound window, those are things that we can do. But we want to make sure that as we see changes coming, whether they be positive or negative, we can start saying, okay, what are some things that we can do to respond and not react to these things that are going on? And those who know me know that's a big thing. How are we going to respond to the changes that are happening? How are we going to react to them? We don't want to negatively react. We don't want to react out of fear. We want to respond out of wisdom. We want to make sure that we're finding out, what are some changes? What are some things that we need to do differently so that we can again, begin to make that adjustment, and that we're giving ourselves grace and time to make those changes. Okay. We're going to realize as we go along in this journey, in this wellness journey, that physical loss is not going to be our only loss, but there's going to be that weight of that mental weight that's going to come along with that physical loss. And so again, it's important that we, create a team. We create a village around us that's going to help us. We have that team of health professionals that are going to help us, that nutritionist, that wellness coach, that trainer, that mental health professional that's going to help us to embrace all that goes on, all the things that come along with physical loss, because there is an overlap that happens in that. There's going to be a mental, physical, and spiritual aspect to our weight loss. Okay. And with that, I want to introduce a new ebook that I've created. It's called Trimming the Fat, and it's trimming the fat mentally, physically, and spiritually. Okay. And you can obtain a free copy of my Trimming the Fat ebook on my website, KimMartin-Raymond.com. So make sure that you go over to my website, scroll down, look for Trimming the Fat. Make sure that you put your email in there so that way I know who you are and can reach out to you for further, things that I'm doing with regards to my now. So go in, grab your copy of Trimming the Fat. It's a PDF. You can go ahead and get your free copy today. Okay. And so with that, I thank you for joining me for this version of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. Again, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, make sure that you go to my website, KimMartin-Raymond.com, or check out the YouTube channel at How Now Podcast 2391. Okay. And that'll do it for this edition of the How Now podcast. And until I see you all again the next time,